Hello everyone, I'm Dionysus and we're here together with Andy. Andy, hello, it's been a while.
Hello, Dionysus.
And today we're going to talk about 3D printed guns. To put some context in the conversation, the other days I saw something that it looked fancy to me on the internet. And, doing some historical analogy, I remember that back in, something like the Middle Ages or something like that, when the crossbow became relevant, it was easy for, an untrained peasant to use a crossbow and down a knight. Expensive to train, expensive to armor, and just a peasant could take him down. So at some point, some pope of the Roman Catholicism, decreed that the crossbow is a weapon of Satan. Having that analogy in my mind, I thought okay, 3D printed guns, organized crime, revolutionaries, little Joe over, next corner can make a gun. Is this viable? Is this possible? And I asked Andy for his opinion, and he has a different, take on the matter.
To me, 3D printed guns, there's a lot of hype about 3D printed guns. Yes, you can make a 3D printed gun, but there's a lot easier other options. You know what, if you excuse me, it's a lot easier for a criminal still these days to get a crossbow that's going to be a lot more effective than a 3D printed gun. Yeah, and crossbows are going to be legal in most places. The issue is with 3D printed guns is they're not that reliable, and there's a lot easier options to make firearms, for criminals to make firearms. Or in the US, in some states, I'm not going to get into the legalities, but I think under the Constitution, Americans can make their own firearm, which we'll talk about in a bit. But to me, the issue is with 3D printed guns is they're not that reliable. And also, you need ammunition. And again, if you don't have ammunition for the guns, then they're not going to work. I think there was a case in Japan where some crazy guy assassinated, I think it was the prime minister or something, president, whatever. And again, he used an improvised firearm, and that charge for the powder, the bullet, etc. was electric. That guy was a geek. He spent a lot of time and effort putting into building his firearm, which had been a lot easier for him just to improvise an IED. But he was a geek, he's a crazy guy, so such is life. And that illustrates, if he wasn't able to make the gun out of plastic or whatever he made it out of, he'd have made it out of something else. Excuse me. It's a lot easier if somebody has a machine shop to machine a gun, or they're any good at metalworking, to make a gun from metal or metal components than it is to 3D print it. Ammunition. You have to have access to the ammunition. And the ammunition is, you can have all the guns you want. If you don't have ammunition, what's the point in having the guns? For the ammunition, you need primers, casings, the powder, the bullet, etc. So putting together ammunition, putting together a bullet is just as complicated, if not more, than 3D printing a gun. You need those components.
So if you have access to ammunition, most probably you already have access
to. If you have access to illegal ammunition, you can possibly access to illegal firearms. Now, you mentioned something about the guns not being detectable.
If they are plastic.
Yeah, but a whole plastic gun is not going to work. You might get off one shot, but again, the heat from the cartridge is going to melt the gun. So you're going to need at least a metal barrel. Yeah. If the barrel's not rifled, it's going to be limited in accuracy, etc. If it's all plastic, then you're not going to have the tolerances in the manufacturing for it to be reliable. One shot, it'll most probably fall apart. I've seen in the US where, in some states, as I said, I'm not going to get into the politics, the legalities, you can make your own firearms, and guys are having competitions with all 3D printed guns. And it's a big deal for them if they actually work. Okay. If they get off how many rounds, if they're semi-automatic, if they get off how many rounds without the guns failing. If you're talking about one-shot deals, you can make a zip gun out of a couple pieces of pipe, if you've got access to the ammunition. A basic slam-fired shotgun is easy to make. Yeah, if you look on YouTube, you can get the details. The other issue that makes me laugh when they're coming up with 3D printed guns is their ghost guns. Well, ghost guns, this started first bouncing around in the US when guns were turning up from, I believe, the Philippines. They do the same in Pakistan. People still hand make guns.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a machine shop and they make the gun from scratch. It's metal working, same as they used to do with guns. They used to mill everything. As long as you got a lathe, as long as you got some drills, you can make a gun. A classic example of that is the British Sten gun from the Second World War. It's just made out of bits of tube and springs, etc. It was a cheaply made gun that was easy to make during the Second World War because people need firearms. I see people, usually in UK or wherever, being arrested because they're downloading the plans for 3D printed guns. Okay, if you go to, I believe, Paladin Press in the US,
they have all the books, all the schematics.
How to make explosives, how to make firearms, etc. So again, there's a lot easier ways to make firearms than 3D printed guns. Back down to the ghost guns. The guns were coming into the US with no serial numbers. They didn't know where they were from, etc. The other thing they're classing as ghost guns in the US now is people are selling partially finished receivers and frames. Receivers for rifles and frames for pistols. Yeah? So they're unserial numbered. Yeah, you buy the partially made piece and you drill a few holes in the receiver. I know a few people that's played with these. I was never into them. You drill a few holes in the receiver, in the frame of the pistol, usually a Glock, and you put in the components. Now, in the US, you can buy the components to go into the pistol.
Okay.
You buy the barrel, you buy the slide, etc. And from what I've heard, the partially finished frames, they work as long as you know what you're doing. But that's proper polymer. Now, the polymer on, be it whatever pistol, we'll just use a Glock, the polymer is not touching the slide or the barrel.
Okay.
Yeah, there's metal rails in there that keeps the slide away from the polymer. Why? Because if it gets too hot, the polymer is going to melt, it will damage, etc. And Glock and the firearms manufacturers are using top quality polymer.
Yes.
Yeah? Not plastic. So this is the thing with the ghost guns. A lot of what they class as ghost guns in the US now are the partially finished receivers and frames which have been somebody's adapted over, but they've been professionally made.
Okay.
They're not a plastic gun that somebody's printed in their garage. As I said, ammunition, you need the ammunition. I think why ghost guns have got so much attention, well, sorry, not ghost guns, 3D printed guns, is it's sexy.
Okay.
It's clean. You're talking about something which appeals to people with its technology. It's a sexy topic. Okay, how many people have been making guns forever? You can make a gun in a machine shop, but that is usually some sweaty guy in dirty overalls there with a file and milling things, etc. People don't want to look at that these days. Okay. It's a lot more high tech and a lot more cool to talk about 3D printing. It's technology. So I think, yes, 3D printed guns, you can make them. Is it an option for me? Is it an option for criminals? I would say if I was a criminal and had access to the ammunition, I would sooner find somebody that knew a little bit about metalworking and can make decent zip guns or slam-fired whatever, which is easy to make. If you ask Google, look on YouTube, there's ways of people, I think, that's showing up there how to make your survival weapons. It's a lot easier to make weapons out of metal, or you know what, buy a crossbow.
Yeah.
I was looking at, there's some very potent slingshots coming out of China with latex these days. They're potent. So there's a lot more options rather than going through the effort of 3D printing a gun that's not going to be that reliable. You might use it once. It might work. It might not work. It might work for a magazine. You might be able to fire 5 or 6 rounds, 10 rounds out of it, and then it's finished. Okay. So what's the point?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks for the insight, Andy.
My opinion.
Yeah, and thank you for your time to watch this video. If there are any questions you would like to make, use the comments section below. And once again, thank you for your time. We hope to see you in another video. Bye.